NATO, I think all of us would argue, has been the most successful military alliance in history, not because of the battles it has won in war, but the victory it has really achieved in sustaining peace. And that's not solely due to NATO, but it's also part of the network of institutions and nations that have transformed the prospects for global peace and security. We saw that obviously right throughout the Cold War period, where NATO became the foundation for solidarity against communism and authoritarianism, and underscored that NATO and these countries were willing to invest in the values of freedom, choice, and the rule of law. We saw it in Europe, which had been fractured for decades, and NATO was a central factor, along with the European Union, in bringing together France and Germany, in keeping the UK linked to the European body politic, in facilitating a resolution of differences between Greece and Turkey, and helping Spain make the transition from authoritarianism. We saw NATO's role after the collapse of the Warsaw Pact and the Soviet Union, when it made the decision to create the Partnership for Peace, when it made the decision to enlarge, giving those new independent states an incentive to reform, to achieve eternal stability, to observe human rights. And obviously there has been a big debate and an extended debate that we even see now about the impact that this has had on Russia, but one can even argue that on Russia's borders that they have seen stability tempered with a respect for human rights and democracy that might not have existed elsewhere. And of course, NATO's role in the Balkans has been well known and understood, obviously in Bosnia and Kosovo, and now it's become an issue where NATO and its partners in the European Union and in the West are again at the forefront in the Balkans on the future of Kosovo and what will happen there, and even moving beyond Kosovo, the issues of a membership action plan and the implications for Ukraine and Georgia, and how this all plays into the Russian agenda. I mention these things because they are all the backdrop and part of what plays into the questions of Afghanistan. And while Afghanistan may have its roots in September 11th, 2001, and the American response to this act of terrorism, we have to remember that Afghanistan is operating under a UN mandate. There is a UN mission that brokered the Bonn Agreement for Afghanistan. There is a democratic state that has welcomed in the UN and NATO. And in addition to that, there is a wider range of partners as far afield as Australia and Japan and India that have been involved in different aspects of the mission in Afghanistan. And so while for NATO there are serious questions on whether 35,000 troops are enough, can they sustain the peace, what are the rules of engagement, what are the cross-border issues, what are the issues with narcotics, and perhaps even most challenging, what is the challenge of the interrelationship between the military parts of the mission and the civilian parts of the mission and the viability of the state. What I think we can also say is that what NATO faces in Afghanistan today is of even greater consequence, not just for the viability of NATO, but for the entire international community, because it puts to the test whether the international community can uphold a commitment to help a democratic government that has established itself and seeks support in order to be able to fight international terrorism and organized crime.